Good afternoon and welcome to the Workforce Observer. We are so pleased to have with us today Terri Gallagher. Welcome, Terri.
I feel very welcome. I'm super excited to be talking about this with you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. She is a workforce futurist, tech co-founder, speaker, author, and builder of solutions to optimize and enable a successful alternative workforce. Terri, I'm going to dive right in. So, it's everyone's talking AI, right? We're hearing about ChatGPTs, LLMs, vector data sets, RAG. These are changing roles and jobs, though, across all industries and especially ours. So, and I know you work with a number of different segments, number of different people in the workforce ecosystem. I wanted to get your thoughts on how this is impacting different players, especially the customers, because, whatever you and people like you are creating, it's for the end users of staffing, some of it is for staffing firms. So let's start with buyers. How are they reacting to this wave? And how has their behavior changed around staffing, suppliers, vendors, and expectations?
So one of the things is I had to do as somebody who just founded an AI-based tech product is to go deep on AI and then really kind of research how is that affecting the buyer and the different solution providers. And I think the biggest thing that's jumping out is that these tools are still very much in their infancy. So we see different solution providers in the space using them to varying degrees for talent acquisition and management. And I think that potential for LLMs and RAGs to enable smarter candidate sourcing and matching and onboarding, reducing time to hire, improving the quality of hires. I think that that's all there, and I think that that's where probably the biggest opportunity is and where most people are jumping on. And I think that probably the heaviest usage that I'm seeing right now is around tasks that are low-hanging fruit, based on the AI companies we're seeing sprout up. So looking at candidate screening using chatbots,
Yes.
intelligent matching, skills and competency analysis, things like that. I don't see anyone going really big on AI, and I think the customer is looking to us to educate them on where the potential is.
Right. You said going big on AI. What in your mind is big on AI?
Well, I think everyone is really looking at AI as like the sugar on top of everything, right? So everyone wants to be a part of it, and I just myself researching it, I'm realizing like just how powerful AI is and all the different products that are out there. And so being able to really understand it and then integrate it into just some of the processes that not only the solution providers have, but the customer has, I think it's a pretty big undertaking. But I see a lot of people really just kind of saying they have AI and sprinkling it like sugar on top of everything.
Sure. So now what does this mean for the big staffing companies and the MSPs and VMSs? Is it any different? Because, they are in the position of having to cater to the buyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And evolving buyer expectations. So what are you seeing out there?
Well, the good news is not much has changed. Like the buyers still want high quality talent provided quickly and cost effectively, and they are looking to the MSPs to educate them on how to leverage AI, right? That's something that they're looking for. I just don't see big staffing and MSP, and mostly big staffing and MSP really, this could be controversial, but I don't think that they're really stepping up at the velocity that they need to really bring AI to the customer. I think the majority of a lot of the staffing providers are still very much attached to this playbook that's been the go-to and a powerful playbook, and it's been a lucrative playbook.
It's been a very lucrative playbook.
Yeah, and they're kind of saying, oh, we have AI, and they're kind of sprinkling it all over everything, but they really don't. They really don't understand it. And I think that AI is really pushing the MSPs to evolve rapidly, particularly around ChatGPT for recruitment. We're seeing a little bit of that again around sourcing and screening and matching. Analytics, workforce insights. We're seeing a little bit of that around vendor selection. But I think the execution from our perspective has been painfully slow, more so on the the staffing and the MSP side. And my personal prediction is we're seeing some of the bigger MSPs buy these platforms or, kind of add them to the portfolio. And that's only half the battle. You can't partner or integrate these platforms without changing the fundamental foundation that you've built. And some of the MSPs have actually reached out to us to partner or collaborate, and we've got to peek under the hood. I don't think they're making the changes. I think they're putting it in marketing. I think they're putting it on their website. They're talking about, but it's a fugazi. It's not real. Like when you start talking to them, they're not really executing. It's not saying that they couldn't change, but I think there's a profound sense of self-awareness around the playbook that's no longer working, and then really getting serious about using AI. And I'm sure that there's probably be some people that are not going to be happy with me saying that, but that's our perspective. I don't think they're moving fast enough.
Well, I think the 2 decades that I have spent in the industry, working around content, that has been a complaint with new developments and MSPs. I've had people say, so what is the value? But I mean, that's a story for another day. But I think it is when things like this, someone called it a magical moment, the introduction of AI
That's a great way of
in our
putting it. It
lives.
is.
Yeah. It was actually Abhi, but he called it a magical moment. And I think that it takes all players a bit of time to understand, like, what does this mean for the ecosystem? What does this mean for my customer? And also, what does this mean for me? To be fair to the MSP. I mean, it's not a quick, easy answer,
Yeah.
especially when your core business is different.
I think
I
that
think.
I'm more bullish on the VMSs. I see them because they're tech products. So I see them, embracing it a little bit more, but again, it's around that core matching and vetting, data analytics, the little sweet spot. And that's such a small piece of what AI can do, which we'll get into in a minute. But yeah.
So what do you see, given this now that we have the context, what do you see as the biggest challenge around recruiting in this landscape, with AI?
I think that there's some really interesting challenges that are going to provide ethical challenges and security challenges that I think we need to look at. And some of that is like algorithmic bias, right? An AI model still needs to be trained by a human. And you have RAGs and you have, products that can go and get data and then assimilate data and then LLM to communicate it back, but it still needs to be trained. And so even we're training our own product, right, as we speak, but it's being trained on historical data, which contains biases related to gender, race, age, other. I think that there's a huge opportunity here to flip the script on some of the biases that exist with humans, because we as humans are biased. We're all biased, right? It's part of the human. Everybody is. I try really hard, but right?
No, it's deep, it's inbuilt, and you have to watch for them.
Yeah.
Like very consciously, you have to watch for them.
Well,
so yeah.
And I think another thing too is we've learned there's actually like AI ethics. I'm not gonna say it, but they practice AI ethics. So we're actually working with some of them. They're in very high demand. So I think looking at bringing on experts to build out these AI strategies is what recruitment firms and what the industry should be looking at to understand how these algorithms work. That's a risk. Data privacy. When you really start getting into understanding AI, like I understand why Elon Musk is concerned because of the power that it has to look at everything, right? It can learn everything about a person. It can learn everything about everything. And so data privacy, I think, is a real concern. The ability to process exponentially more sensitive data, social media platforms, looking at integration with legacy systems, I think that that's going to be a challenge with recruitment and with some of these solutions. Is that are they going to be compatible with some of these new AI tools? Like we're looking at RPAs instead of integration, right? Because that just makes more sense. There's a lot of systems that are very dependent on integration, and I think that this is the touchy-feely part of it, but the AI interactions can be a little impersonal, right? Like if you ever like put something in ChatGPT to rewrite it and then you send it over and it just sounds so cold and it's like
Yeah.
not you. Like I've had people come back and like, you
Yeah.
put this in ChatGPT, didn't you? I was like,
Really?
yeah, a couple, because I
Yeah.
was trying to
Yeah.
organize my thoughts
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my divergent
It's
brain.
so It's so funny you should say that because I look at it sometimes, just to see, hey, can I make this more compelling?
Right. Me
And,
too.
and I'm a writer, I'm an
Yeah,
editor and
me
writer,
too.
and I do it, and it doesn't make too many tweaks. I haven't seen, but sometimes it will take something and yes, make it sound better, but it's not me at all.
Yeah, it's that balance.
So,
The humans are still important. It's
yeah,
just, they're going to
yeah,
have to learn to coexist, AI and
yeah,
humans.
yeah. I mean, you're beginning to start a company. What do you see? Like, paint me a picture of a clear, like a
The clear
solution that you see
leader.
emerging, like a
Um,
leader in the space. And it's just very pie in the sky, right? Because, I mean, I'm not expecting you to say, I predicted this is going to be the solution. But what do you think? I mean, because you're working in this area actively and you see stuff. And what do you think? And just, blue skies, go for it.
Blue sky. I'm going to quote Abraham Lincoln. He once said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I believe we're in uncharted territory. I don't know of anyone that is a truly a clear leader, including ourselves with Emberpath. I think that there's so much uncharted territory that we are creating and painting that as we go. And I do believe that AI has tremendous power to disrupt our industry. It's already begun. We look at everybody in staffing and MSP that's got AI in their solutions, but I do see a lot of solution providers and staffing and MSP getting left behind or losing significant market share to competitors that are really embracing AI strategically to open up these new talent pathways, automate sourcing, vetting, deploying, kind of that low hanging fruit. But I think that the solution provider landscape is going to look very different in 5 years. And everyone keeps saying that, but we're seeing the writing on the wall. I was talking to a friend of mine who's an entrepreneur, and he said, I see traditional staffing completely being obliterated in 5 years, just gone.
Oh, talk more. Say more. Say more.
Yeah,
It's
just because
interesting.
you look at on demand workforce platforms, you look at talent marketplaces, you look at recruiting bots, and all of these AI products that are coming out to do things in seconds that takes humans weeks, days, months to process and vet, LinkedIn profiles. And the other part is the cost. If you've got staffing markups and you've got these traditional consulting markups, right? There's a lot of cost in that. And I think that customers are today wanting the speed and the immediacy that these AI solutions provide.
So you think there's going to be a world where yes, you would need a human, but the chat bot and between the various AI tools, they find, they source, they verify, and then do you think maybe a human would come in to say, okay, we found this, here are three people, and that we think that would really fit your bill, and then have the human talk to the three people before.
Well, I think the
Do you
humans
think
are,
that's
are going to
still a possibility?
I think there's that. I mean, the relationship building and all those things that are classically human, and that at some point you're going to have to talk to a candidate, right? Candidates would rather hear from a bot that they didn't get a job than hear from no one because they've got, a
That's true.
recruiter that's overworked and can't get back to them.
That
Um,
is true.
but they still want to talk to a person and who's training the AI, right? So we have a product. You still got to train the AI. It's still a tool, right? And how do you kind of integrate
Right.
it into your systems and processes? And you need humans to figure out what that's going to look like.
I guess whatever it is, staffing is just going to look very different. I personally don't think there would be a time when there is no human. I mean, when you say staffing is going to be destroyed, yes, maybe
That's a
traditionally,
strong thing to say. I think the traditional model is going to be destroyed. I don't think
it definitely.
I think staffing companies are some of the most adaptive companies out there. Look
Right.
at how long they've lasted. But I do think that that model of
It's going to
markup,
change. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
going out to Indeed and finding can't like that's going to be done.
I mean, even the whole bricks and mortar thing changed, right, with COVID.
Yeah.
And then staffing firms started looking at, so then online platforms and no, definitely. I mean, change is the only constant. So no, this is super cool. I get it. So now let's talk a little bit about you and Emberpath. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on
And one of the
on my
reasons we wanted
podcast
to be on.
was it was because of what you're planning to do. And I really found, I mean, I'm a words person, and I love the, lighting the path to the human capital spectrum. And what did you mean by that? And what is Emberpath's mission? Talk a little bit about it.
Well, it kind of came out of the genesis of this idea. As you look at all of the entrance points for the talent supply chain, there's thousands, literally thousands of staffing and consulting and on-demand workforce platforms and direct sourcing and MSP and all of these very fragmented entry points, which gates and limits the access to the full human capital spectrum, meaning permanent, whatever that workforce looks like. And so this is something that the triad of, the three of us really believe in strongly, is that complexity and the gating of that talent supply isn't serving the people who need to work and then those that want to hire them. I personally have never believed in labor shortages, even when people talk about the talent shortage. I just think that the talent is dispersed across many different talent communities. They may only want
Okay.
to work part-time. They may be sitting in an on-demand workforce platform. They may have changed how they want to work. And so when you look at the fragmentation of the entry
Yep.
points, that's what
Yep.
we
It is
wanted to
right.
solve for.
Yeah. I have been seeing, descriptions now like fractional marketing.
Mm-hmm.
A fractional CMO, fractional HR leader. And I find that very interesting. Are you going to do anything around that? Because people, I think, are saying, oh, I don't need to be doing this the whole time. I'm only going to be doing this for a little bit, and I've got three other things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like I mean, it's different. I haven't seen that much of it as I have now. So I'm just asking, is Ember Path going to do anything? Because you talked about it being really, scattered. So are
Yeah, the
you,
access is scattered, and I think that there's no real way to, at the beginning of the decision point, to think about what do I actually need to get this work done? Do I need a full-time CMO? Can I use fractional, right? We use
yeah,
them. Like, how do you think
yeah.
Gallagher got to the point we've gotten to with no VC funding, no nothing, women-owned services company? Nobody's exactly lining up for, with checks. So we believe in that ourselves. Like, we're all fractional, and we're
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
very dedicated to this. So I think that is, it's going to be an enabler of talent working the way that they want to, how they want to work, where they want to work.
So if I asked you to give me a one line on what Ember Path does, like the product, I know you are it's very, very early. And if you're like, oh, no, I'm not ready yet, that's fine. But I'm just curious. I mean, now I'm curious. I'm like, oh, what is it? Like, what are
Well,
they offering?
if you had to answer it, so I'll explain in one word in a minute, but if you had
Okay.
to, it answers these questions, right? So what if you could access the entire human capital spectrum through a single entry point? And what if you had an interactive assistant to help with that? And what if finding the right talent to complete the work was a conversation, right? And then what if talent engagement was centralized and easy to navigate, and you had a tool that can provide all that? And that really is what EmberPath is. It's the centralization and access to the entire human capital management spectrum.
And I am assuming when you say entire human capital management spectrum, you mean perm and temp,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
at the
the whole spectrum.
beginning of the decision point,
Got it.
what do you really need? And sometimes it can even create like a business case, or maybe somebody like, I don't really know what I need. Well, here's your options. Here's some things that you could consider, from a price, from a type of workforce. And that's really what it does. And then does all the other not so sexy things that you still need, which is, streamlining the hiring and onboarding and empowering managers to triage and select the right workforce. You still gotta capture those things, but
What trends or needs in the market convinced you that this is the right moment now for the market for you to enter
um,
with something like an Ember Path?
yeah.
Anything
Well,
specific?
it's like you said, this is it's a magical moment. There's a convergence of so many workforce changes and evolution, right? You've got the how, when, and where how work gets done is radically changed. With fractional CMOs, you have explosive growth of ICs, solopreneurs, talent clouds. You have candidate expectations around speed to hire, right? Nobody's going to sit for a 5-panel interview anymore. They're out of there. Like, I'm out, right? Nobody's going to wait for that anymore. And normalizing side gigs and normalizing job hopping. Like, you and I are from a different generation, but years ago when someone looked at a resume and they had 9 different things, that was like a red flag. Now it's actually a good thing because of, that's what they're doing, and they're able to get different types of experience. But I think the workforce model has changed. The 200-year-old employment construct of, I call it the guy at the top with a mahogany desk with the power to hire and fire and calling all the shots, like, the power's back in the people's hands and in the candidates' hands how they want to work. And this workforce is spread across multiple talent supply channels. They could be fractional, they could want to work perm. But I think the biggest thing I'll end with in this question is a blended workforce is the biggest change. Like, you remember before ICs and contractor were other, or ICs were like, oh my God, we need to use as little of them as possible, and the whole Microsoft thing. And now that's completely changed, right? There's multiple white papers and studies from respected consultancies that say that orgs that effectively embrace the blended workforce, they are going to jump ahead of their competition. And the results are there, revenue growth, et cetera.
Yeah, no, it's funny you should say that, because I myself have spent time with words like extended, alternative, contingent. Because the word contingent, when I was SIA and we introduced it, contingent is like you're dependent on, contingent on something happening.
Temporary.
Contingent. So everyone's like, what is that? It was very hard, for me as an editor to explain what I did. Until I started, really.
We need to get rid of that word, Subhadra. Let's just change it. You want to do it right now? We're just going to start a trend. Call it something else.
Extended workforce. Because also, if you say alternative, you're saying that it's another option.
That's
true. Not what we mean.
Extended.
That's not what we mean. We really mean extended.
You're right.
So
that's
for a long
perfect.
time, So for a long time, I've been wanting to it's extended workforce, and the blended workforce is a really good way to put it, because it's inclusive. It's blended. It's blended with people who want to be full time. It's not the other. So a lot of time has been spent. So that's great. That's great. So, what sets Emberpath apart from other AI-driven talent solutions, and who are these companies? And maybe it's not fair to say what sets you apart, because you're still it's a very early stage. But you must have looked at the competition, or you must have looked at other people. And who are these companies, and what are they doing, and what is different about you?
I thought about this, how do we, based on the fact that I guess we do have competition, but I think the biggest thing is that it's a truly neutral talent supply engine. So Ember, the assistant at the beginning doesn't care about referral networks or paying homage to channel partnerships out of fear of losing introductions, or what supplier bought you tickets at the Knicks game, or it's a truth teller of the best path to take for talent. And it's neutral, right, at the beginning of that decision, versus coming in through these other entry points that are very gated and controlled by mutual referral networks. And I think our competition really is other tech providers aggregating a small portion of the total human capital spectrum, right? These different entry points, the candidate and job matching across a subsection of the total human capital spectrum. So you look at on-demand workforce platforms and staffing supplier marketplaces. In fact, when we started explaining this product to our peers that we know, they kept trying to compare it to something like this, this product. I'm like, no, our product is literally that product's like a propeller, plane. We're like the Death Star. You're not getting the difference. This is access to everything. And we are looking at the blended workforce as a whole, and how can we connect, or the extended workforce, how can we connect to that in real time to triage and select the right workforce options with precision.
So would you be integrating then with with buyers, with their systems, or
Their
would it
systems will
be
definitely be a part of the workflow, and then we're looking at different ways to communicate with those systems. And
okay?
integration's not the only option on the table, but
Okay.
absolutely, like people are saying, well, will this take over MSPs or will you leave them out? I'm like, no, if there's an MSP there, they're just part of it. They're part of the ecosystem. We're not cutting anyone out. We're going to connect
It's
with
just
what's
another
there.
option.
Right,
It's like sitting on top of something and
right,
it goes through all the
right,
options, I guess
right.
is what you're saying.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. So, in this new great world, what challenges do you see for the ecosystem as they try to tap the AI wave? And how do you see the industry? Will they be collaborating with established AI experts to move ahead? And who would these market leaders be? Because as I look in to see what's going on, honestly, it's hard to get a picture. Some companies are doing it, some companies are not, very early, everyone's very early stage.
Yeah.
So what is actually the landscape, and what are the industry's challenges?
Well, I agree with you. I don't know who the market leaders are. I see a few solution providers that are really serious about AI and investing. Um, I think the biggest changes are around big staffing and MSPs. They've had the same playbook for 20 years. It's been profitable. It's been uncomplicated. It's not rocket science what they do, but I think it's bred a little bit of comfort and complacency. I think that there's a certain mindset. I know because I worked for them. Half of what I learned in the MSP space. But I think to really embrace AI and the power of what it can do, it's going to require some pretty big changes and pain. It's going to mean sacrificing. It's going to mean changing leadership and services and tech models. It's going to mean changing revenue models. It's going to be about making those pivots that are needed. And I don't see that happening with MSPs and staffing at the velocity that it needs to stay relevant. I think some are going to get it when it's finally like so painful that they have to do something when they've lost so much wallet share and market share. But I'm not seeing real leaps forward. I think it's too soon to tell. I agree with you. And I just in that space, I think that in our space, I think the foray has been a little tepid. We're seeing more on the tech side and the VMS side. Um, I don't. I mean,
So
that's
I guess,
I mean, you've been in the space a long time. I'm not seeing the velocity and the urgency that I think needs to happen in this space.
I just started talking to people, and one of the things people's consultants too, AI consultants actually, have mentioned is that you've got to get ahead of it.
Hmm.
And obviously, many people don't have the knowledge to, but there are people out there who do. So you have to go talk, but you have to make a conscious decision to change.
Hmm.
I think that is what is hard. That is the challenge, because you can say, yes, you're making money, things are going on, but in parallel, you've got to think about, okay, so what can I do differently so that I can accommodate, not even accommodate, I can absorb this and get ahead with it rather than being dragged into the future with it.
Hmm.
And that, I think, has to come from the top,
I
right?
agree.
From the C-suite, or if you're small, from whoever, your president, your executive leaders, that has to come from there. And I think the first thing, and I have noticed that the industry, there are a lot of people like Empath is just one example, but there are people who are excited, who are
Hmm.
moving ahead, who want to. But I think we've got to have the big players look at it and say, okay, all right, this is a big shift. So we've
They
got to
have
change
to
how,
do it
I
because
think.
I think there is some big players. I actually think in MSPs, there's some that actually do have some very visionary leaders. I think the challenge is being
Yeah.
able to then disseminate that down to the boots on the ground and people that have been doing the same thing the same way for 15 years and then holding them accountable for making the changes. And that's not okay. You really need to go and
Yeah.
provide that support. Here's the change to the playbook. This is how we're going to do things
Right.
differently.
I think leadership, support, and actual actionable,
Yeah.
actually doing it. So
Hmm.
we'll see how it plays out. I think it's going to be a very interesting time in the industry. I mean, I for one, I'm excited. I hope that everyone jumps on this bandwagon and we see things improve, not just for the players, but for also the talent, right?
That is
That's
kind of
what
the
we want.
point. Yeah, that's the
Yeah, that is
point.
the whole point. Yeah, no, this is great. So, how do you think the industry should proceed to ensure, ethical use of AI? Any strategies you would recommend for industry players?
I think it's so important to understand what it is and what it can do. And having experienced this myself, going deep on AI for Emberpath, I
Yeah.
am awed at the power and the ability to process and think in seconds what takes us days, weeks. The access that it has to data on everyone, how it communicates and uses that data is mind-boggling. I think the biggest thing is for the solution providers out there that do want to get into it, you can't manage something that you don't understand, and I think most don't. I am very concerned about some of the staffing solution providers out there that are just like throwing AI on top of everything. They don't understand it, and they don't understand the power of what they have, the bias in AI algorithms, the need for human oversight, and data privacy and security, right, is probably the biggest thing is what we feed into the LLM and AI evolves, that's how it learns, right? And so I just I look at everybody jumping on it and I feel like there needs to be more thought that goes into how you're leveraging AI and those ethics pieces and that security piece. And I don't feel like that's being taken seriously. We're taking it seriously because we have people on our team that are very passionate about this too. But
Right, right. Okay, what any, two or three key takeaways you could offer the industry as it adapts to to these changes to an AI-driven world? Maybe one practical for the short term and another one for the long
yeah,
term.
I think short
Easy
term,
to do.
yeah, educate
Yes.
yourself on capabilities and how it can be integrated in your business model, and then start small, incremental changes. Use it in recruitment. There's lots of products out there, matching, vetting, all those things that take hours, data analysis, lots of products out there. Long term, I think you need to embrace that AI is going to radically change sourcing, vetting, deploying talent, the immediacy and the speed that customers are now going to expect. That's going to be at the forefront. I think the cost models are going to change for traditional staffing or MSPs. And, we talked about that earlier. The biggest thing is you really need to be aware of accessing omni-channel sourcing to go to the talent where they are. And AI is a very good product to do that. Does it faster than the humans, and it can't be done with traditional sourcing. I think there's just a huge opportunity here, and I mean it's all greenfield. Go for it. Just get educated on what you're getting into.
We talk about education a lot, right? In
Hmm.
this and with AI. Where do they go to get educated? Is it just, I mean, again, you're back on the internet,
Well,
searching everything you can. Experts, like where does one go? Coursera?
I mean, yeah,
Learning
you can even put
platforms?
stuff into ChatGPT if you want to learn about it. But I mean, there's lots of white papers from respected. There's people on LinkedIn that are AI I cannot pronounce it, ethics and AI
Yeah,
experts, and they do a lot of great content. Um,
that's good to know.
yeah, but definitely get
Okay.
educated.
And kind of the last question, can you kind of describe the AI-driven recruiting world we might look forward to? Not even 5 years from now, 2025. What are we going to see?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think even sooner than that. Well, I think AI enabled access to omni-channel sourcing without constraints. Of course, I'm biased because that's what we're building, but I think that we really need to remove some of the constraints and the gating. Speed and immediacy is going to be expected on the client and the candidate side, right? Sourcing, vetting, onboarding. Again, no one's going to wait and go through 5 interviews anymore. Using AI-driven data to make efficient decisions. I think it's going to be pretty de rigueur. It's going to be pretty much like table stakes for anyone using AI. And then the last piece is just being mindful of the power of it and the balance between the humans and machine. The complementary strengths. I think that that's important. We still got to train AI. We still got to put the right things into the machine, so to speak. That's it. Who am I? Who am I to predict? Right? Who are we to predict?
Yeah, I know. Well, you're a founder. You're jumping to this world. I mean, you have a right to say what you feel. So, but thank you so much, Terry. Thank you for your time, your insights. It was wonderful talking with you. For those of you who want to learn more, the links will be in the description. It has been super enjoyable.
Thank you, Subhadra. My pleasure. Thanks for having us.